I've been doing a lot of traveling lately. It's one of those things that it makes an impact on, at least for me, on not just how I've spent my time, seeing more of the inside of airports than usual, but also on how I've been thinking and what I've been learning. Many of you know that now I'm making monthly trips to visit my family in Northern California to help take care of my mom. But this month, in addition to that now regularly scheduled travel, I was invited to take 2 more trips, each its own special honor. 2 weeks ago, I was at Congregation Beth Torah in Richardson, Texas, to officiate at the rabbinic installation of my friend, Rabbi Sidney Rubenstein, who of course is married to Rabbi Feivel Rubenstein, who grew up here at Adat Shalom. And earlier this week, I traveled to Chicago to attend a conference of Rabbis United, a division of the pro-Israel organization Stand With Us. There were many sessions, both powerful and educational, and there were meetings with colleagues across the Jewish community, Orthodox, conservative, and Reform. I had the opportunity to both learn and reflect with a group of rabbis from across the country, now that Israel has been at war for over 400 days, now that we have completed a cycle of Chagim in the wake of October 7th, and all the while continuing to pray not just for our IDF troops and reservists, but for the return of our hostages. May they all come home alive and safe. Amen. And of course, some of the most powerful moments of learning came from deeply personal conversations that were not part of the scheduled program. So beginning this morning, and of course throughout the coming days and weeks, I want to share this learning with all of you. In one session, we heard directly via Zoom from Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, who I imagine many of us have heard from on the news or on Zoom sessions coordinated by pro-Israel groups. He spoke to us from his safe room in Israel, as the region where he was sitting was under fire. As he explained to us how things are proceeding from a military perspective, that despite the constant attacks, progress is still being made, the smartphones of all of us in the room in Chicago sounded with notifications that 2 Israelis had just been killed in a missile attack. So while we are proud of our successes, we of course are still aware that there is much work militarily to still be done to keep Israel safe. We heard another presentation from a Stand With Us senior educator, Mina Rush, on this curriculum called Israel Link. It's a curriculum that we've been using for a few years already here at Adat Shalom in our religious school. So this year, our religious school director, Rabbi Karen Eisenberg, and I have received some initial training on how to implement this curriculum. I, along with my colleagues at this session in Chicago, were able to hear in detail about what makes this curriculum different from its similar resources. It, in a different way, connects directly to students' sense of identity and makes their connection to Israel very personal. And we even played an educational game within the curriculum, the Ben Gurion Escape Room. We heard and verified through our own experience, while the curriculum was initially designed for middle school learners, it is in fact so robust and useful that it has been implemented with students as young as 2nd grade and as old as high school, and even in adult learning settings as well. So if after Shabbos, if anyone wants to play Ben Gurion Escape Room, just let me know. We also heard from Carly Gamil. She's a lawyer who works with Stand With Us full-time. She spoke about how anti-Semitism can be fought with the tools of the law and explained for us a recent, really impressive and substantial victory with the legal claim against NYU, of course, one of our major universities in this country. She explained that this victory was won by clearly and successfully explaining how anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. The full explanation of that is a sermon unto itself, but we'll just start with a 1-sentence summary. Anti-Zionism attacks a Jewish person's identity and not simply their political beliefs. Now, further compelling about Carly Gamil is her personal story. She actually lives with her family on an apple orchard in Alaska. She says, "My life is a Hallmark movie." And she's not Jewish. But early in her career, she worked for a Jewish lawyer and became passionately pro-Israel as she supported her firm's work fighting anti-Semitism. When it became time to move on to her next job, she decided she wanted to focus her law practice on supporting Israel and fighting anti-Semitism full-time. Meeting her is a powerful reminder and a powerful testament to the reality that there are non-Jews who support us, that we do have non-Jewish allies who are not just Zionist, but who will actively defend us in the public square. And sadly, we heard stories of terribly anti-Semitic incidents that had happened just weeks and just days before we were all gathered. We heard a story in the Chicago suburbs of a man violently attacked while walking to shul on Shabbat Bereshit at the very end of the Chagim. We heard a really terrible story of a girl violently assaulted by her middle school classmates when she refused to participate in a pro-Palestinian walkout in her school. And we heard from Michael Kaminsky, a Stand With Us Emerson Fellow on his college campus at DePaul University. He became a pro-Israel activist just last year in 2023, right after his birthday, which happens to be October 6th. He was a freshman, celebrating his birthday on campus for the first time, and as the night of celebration went on, he started to get a feeling that something was wrong. He checked his phone, of course, heard about the attack on Israel, and the very next day started reaching out to Jewish organizations on his campus to see what he could do and how he could help. Now this year, just days ago, and I imagine some of us already saw this on the national news, Michael Kaminsky was on his campus, waving an Israeli flag, answering questions about Israel to anyone who would come and ask, which he did frequently on his campus, and he was doing this with his classmate and friend, a 27-year-old freshman from Israel who had just begun college after serving for months in Gaza last year. Michael and his friend were attacked by two masked assailants who have still not yet been found. Michael's friend is recovering slowly from a severe concussion, and Michael spoke to us wearing a sling with a broken wrist. He has received some communication and support from his university, but has received more support from Stand With Us. And he states calmly and firmly, he will persist in his pro-Israel activism. All of these speakers and all of these sessions were powerful and impactful. And there are still more that I don't have time to tell you about this morning. But I want to leave us with a story, a personal story of a conversation I had over brunch the next day after all the sessions were over. And this story is a powerful and compelling testament for why it is so important for us at this moment in time to travel to Israel and to join our Adat Shalom trip to Israel. So I was honored to join Roz Rothstein, CEO and co-founder of Stand With Us and member of Adat Shalom, along with two of her Stand With Us colleagues and her cousin for brunch the morning after the conference, right before we traveled back home. So Roz's cousin had just returned from Israel and explained that she had been there for Sukkot with 19 members of her family. And then she said she and her family had been there last year as well on October 7th. Her description of her experience on the morning of October 7th in Israel was chilling, unlike any narrative of that day I had heard so far. This was the first time I had heard about what that day was like for an American Jew who was there visiting Israel. She said it was about 7:30 in the morning, where she and her family were staying, when the sirens began to go off. They went off, and they didn't stop. Everyone in the family was confused. Why were they running some sort of test of the system when it would go on for such a long time? Couldn't they turn it off already? After a while, her daughter-in-law, who was a doctor, said, okay, what is it that's actually going on? What kind of siren are we actually hearing? So she went down to the lobby of the building and spoke to the doorman, who was Druze and who spoke Arabic, as well as Hebrew. And he told her what he was seeing on Arabic-speaking media about the massacre that was unfolding and that was continuing. She ran back upstairs and straight to the bathroom, taking a long moment to recover from what she had heard. She came out and told her family what was going on, along with strict safety instructions. Stay inside, don't leave the house, don't go anywhere, don't go to shul, don't go to a friend's house for lunch on Yontif. And of course, everyone was terrified. When the day was over and religious Israelis turned their phones back on, this family had to keep their phones off because they were Orthodox American Jews visiting Israel, and it's their custom to still keep the 2 days of Yom Tov. So still no one went outside, the roads were quiet, and they started seeing buses come by. And they were first worried and then confused, But soon it became clear that these buses were picking up soldiers headed into battle. And so civilians began to run outside to meet the buses with cases of water and snacks and anything that they could provide to help along the journey. So this year, when Roz's cousin and her family returned to Israel for Sukkot, they remembered, of course, so vividly their experiences last year on October 7th. This year's visit was completely different. And she said, it's a different country now. Last year when we were there, it was a vacation. And this year, it was like, and she took a moment to search for the right word. And she said, a mission. She told us that she and her family this year went to an IDF base to cook them a meal. Her husband and sons-in-law cooked meat on the grill. She and her daughter and daughters-in-law chopped vegetables. And she told us over this meal, over brunch, about her interactions with the soldiers. One who had made Aliyah from the UK and was a reservist. One who had immigrated from Ethiopia and was a combat soldier in her initial years of service. She spoke about the diversity and the unity. All the soldiers were from such different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, and all unquestionably and devotedly Israeli. Listening to her story, hearing the emotion in her voice, helped me remember why we here at Adat Shalom are planning and taking this trip to Israel. Why I, along with Rina Lee and Marla, all believe so passionately in the need to take this powerful action at this crucial moment. It is absolutely true that Israelis need us. They need our moral and spiritual support, our financial support, our participation in tourism, our volunteer hours picking vegetables and packing food. But just as true for us is that we need Israel. We need the moral and spiritual support that can only come from barbecuing dinner for the IDF. We need the knowledge and insight that can only come from seeing Israel's reality with our own eyes, the emotional connection that can only come from standing in Eretz HaKodesh in our holy land with our own feet. As we've been saying for months now, and it has been true forever, we are one people with one heart. We need to go to Israel to reconnect with our heart. So if anyone here today in person, anyone here joining us virtually, has any questions about our upcoming Israel trip, please reach out to me or to Rina Lee at Kiddush Today, over email after Shabbat, or by calling the office next week. And if you have friends and family that you know would benefit from joining our trip, please talk to us. We'd love to get in touch with them and give them a call. As events in our world continue to unfold, we continue to see that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism unfortunately aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So we continue to learn. We continue to be activists in defense of ourselves, of our Jewish community, and of our Jewish homeland. And as we are here together on this Shabbat, and as we travel to Israel next year as a community, we continue to connect with our heart. Am Yisrael Chai, Shabbat Shalom.